Doxey, a familiar scene to us all, but a scene that was dramatically changed in 1975 by the addition of the new church centre of the parish of St Thomas and St Andrew, Stafford. Once complete, the years of waiting and preparation had faded in the memory. Patience had been rewarded with the provision of a new, fine, multi-purpose building for Doxey. But our story begins not here in Doxey, but in Castletown, where the old church of St Thomas was opened in 1866. It was built to serve the new railway community of Stafford, although the railway workers then were more used to coal and steam rather than the diesel oil and electricity that today's railways rely on. A series of special services was held in January 1972 to mark the end of the 106 years of use. On the final Saturday, an evening of favourite hymns. Sunday, January the 30th, dawned bright but cold, with an overnight snow shower covering the ground. The Bishop of Lichfield came to preach at this, the last morning service.
For I have come here today at the kind invitation of the Vicar to be with you at one of the last services held in this church of St Thomas. And various thoughts will be going through your minds on such an occasion as this. We thank God in the first instance for those who built the church just over a century ago. And we think of the way in which it was erected in order that it might serve the spiritual needs particularly.
And so came the very final service on that Saturday evening in January.
says more than that. It says, therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside each weight and sin, and let us run with perseverance, looking unto Jesus. Not looking to people or events or happenings, but looking unto Jesus. Here's the real secret of going on. He is the one factor of common, which is common to past and present and future, that links them all, that links James Tyra and William Kendall and all the past.
The bell was removed, and a familiar landmark in the town was about to disappear forever. The demolition team arrived on the site in June 72, and within a few weeks Mr. O'Halloran, his men and his bulldozer had flattened the old church, leaving little evidence of a place of worship. We now move back up the Doxey Road. This was the appearance of the new church site soon after the builders had moved in on November the 5th, 1973. But the first service on this site was not held in March 75, but in July 72. The missionary weekend then included a very wet fair on the Saturday and services in the marquee on Sunday. This was the scene during the morning family service. But the site was transformed by the arrival of a JCB digger, which among many other things cut through the vicarage electricity supply on more than one occasion. During February and March 74, the foundations were laid, a concrete and steel raft weighing nearly 300 tons. Although there was plenty of work going on, progress sometimes seemed slow because everything was still at ground level. But 2 days of activity in April changed all that. A giant Meccano set sent a steel skeleton towering some 30 feet above the ground. first big event in the life of the new church was a day of prayer and gifts and the laying of the foundation stone. A total of over £1,400 was received on the Saturday. The stage was then set for the ceremonials of the following day. The order of service stated that the procession will assemble at St Andrew's Church before moving to the site. And a very impressive procession it was too, led by the Sea Cadets Band, with many of the parish groups represented. Visitors included the Reverend Alan Cook, chairman of the Heinemann Trustees, who was to lay the foundation stone, plus Mr George Venables, the Reverend Vivian Woodward, and the Rural Dean, the Reverend John Lawson.
In the faith of Jesus Christ and to the glory of God, we lay this stone in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. And let the true faith, the fear of God, and brotherly love ever abide. May the church, of which the foundation stone has been laid today.
The ceremonials over, there was time to relax and enjoy a first official cup of tea at the new church centre, and much appreciated it was too, in the cold, blustery conditions. The following Monday saw work back to normal, with the brickies starting their mammoth task of laying over 40,000 bricks. When the steelwork was erected, it was not possible to complete the spire section. This operation had to wait until the walls in the sanctuary area had been built. But the crane returned at the end of July, and the final 3 sections were lifted into position. What was he looking at? The topping out ceremony came at the end of February 75, when the crane returned back on site to lift the 9-foot high, 5-foot wide cross into position. A large crowd watched with interest. With the day of the dedication service approaching rapidly, everything was being done to make sure the church would be completed on time. The beginning of a new era in Doxey also marked the end of an old one. St Andrew's Church had been since January 1972 the parish centre of worship, but now its turn had come for final services on March the 2nd, 1975. The vicar welcomed us. The small congregation sang. Built in 1915, the future of the church and hall was uncertain, although its role as the parish centre of worship had ended. Meanwhile, back at the new church, various contractors were working on the grounds, laying turf and completing the drives. And by Saturday, March the 8th, 1975, everything inside and out was ready for the official opening ceremony and dedication. The Right Reverend Kenneth Skelton was attending one of his first official functions as the new Bishop of Lichfield, having been enthroned only 14 days earlier. Follow the words in the service sheet. 2:50 p.m. Procession of visiting clergy making an anti-clockwise half circuit of the church, then entering the church and going to their seats. Followed by the procession of vicar, patron, architect and builder to their seats. 3 p.m. Bishop's party leaves vicarage by Main Drive and makes a full circuit anti-clockwise of the church and arrives at the church porch. The bishop shall knock on the door and shall be admitted. The congregation shall sing while the bishop's procession makes its way to the front of the sanctuary steps.
This afternoon, rejoice in your heritage. You have a tradition here which you must maintain. You have inherited your faith.
It was appropriate that one of the very first services in the new church should be for the family, in fact a Mothering Sunday special. Sunday school prizes were distributed. and then children of all ages collected gifts for their mothers. There have been many services since that day, and many other different activities have taken place. Baby clinic, playgroup, youth club, young wives, over 60s and keep fit. There have been whist drives, barn dances, harvest suppers, gospel pop concerts, film shows, musical evenings and many other things. But whilst it was fully intended that the new building should be used for as many different purposes as possible, let us never forget that its supreme purpose is for the worship of God's people and the preaching of the gospel of Christ. We cannot do much here without noticing this cross high on the sanctuary wall, which should constantly remind us of this. And so we end where we began, looking at Doxey's spacious new building, but viewed from the castle, it seems almost insignificant, a small part, in fact, of the development of the Christian Church, which began 2,000 years ago and will continue in its present form until, as the Bible promises, Christ comes again.